Welcome back to Winning the Battle for Talent, the podcast where our customer service experts discuss people management, reducing attrition, and helping employees thrive. Let's join the conversation.
Welcome to JD Power's Winning the Battle for Talent podcast. I'm Michael Vermillion with JD Power, and with me today are Mark Miller from JD Power and Ami Lebendiker, who's the co-founder and CEO of Roga. Mark and Ami, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Mike, great to be here. Appreciate it.
Hello, Mike. Thank you for having us.
Hey, so topic for today is anxiety in the workplace. And we're going to drill down in a couple of different ways on this particular topic. There's a lot to it. And so we'll just kind of take it one step at a time. So, Ami, why don't we just start with kind of a high level perspective on anxiety and how that actually impacts performance in the workplace. Why is this an issue?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Michael. And it's something that it has affected me also personally, but I'm sure that a lot of people can resonate with this. In the US, anxiety has become a huge problem, especially after COVID and the pandemic, and then throughout the economic situation. Right now, if you look at the overall statistics, people under 40 years old, 45% of them are dealing with clinical anxiety. So that's half of everyone you know that it's under 40 that has some sort of issues. And then when you look at the workplace, that is exacerbated. So 76% of workers are experiencing anxiety on the job. And this has been affecting specifically the younger population, so millennials and Gen Z. 72% of them left their job last year because of mental health reasons. So the problem is affecting pretty much every single household in America, and this is something that has also affected me in my personal life and a lot of people around me, and the reason for it being such a critical state currently.
Mark, what's your perspective on this, given kind of the size of the issue? And we know that anxiety is something that a lot of our clients are dealing with their workforce. How is this kind of reflecting in performance in terms of the customer experience?
Yeah, so, as we've known for years, there's this significant correlation between employee experience and customer experience. And, the old adage of, happy employees serve and create happy customers. And this notion of anxiety, as Ami has mentioned, has really percolated, frankly, to the top of many organizations at different performance levels. We've even seen degradation in performance at top performance, but not nearly at the same level that we've seen in medium performers and low performers. And this has resulted, this notion of anxiety, there's lots of reasons, macro reasons for it, as Ami alluded to. What we've seen in our research and from talking to leaders is that there, especially in these new work-at-home environment, there has been this radical shift of pressure and responsibility to the frontline supervisors who we as leaders and service leaders across industries haven't been as good as we could be around recognizing that massive shift in responsibility and to the frontline leaders, where before we're used to all this. Like if you take a contact center as an example, you're used to a whole wide array of support mechanisms in place and available for employees that now, from a practical standpoint, really aren't there anymore. That's put enormous pressure on the frontline supervisors who's now wearing all these different hats. And of course, the number one reason for attrition inside contact centers isn't pay, it is supervisors, their immediate supervisors. And so you start thinking about this domino effect of one supervisor affecting 15 to 20 folks. They're suffering from anxiety in general at a macro level that Ami's related to us about. And then operational pressures are being put on them, which further exasperates that and does not allow what is required, which we can get into later, to relieve anxiety, because bandwidth is literally being pulled out at the executional level because we corporately haven't made very, very specific systemic and responsibility adjustments as a contributing causal factor to high anxiety. So there's a lot there, but at the end of the day, we're seeing that this is really a cancer on society, and if we don't take intentional steps to deal with it, which we're going to touch on that some today, it's nothing that's just going to naturally go away. So we're way beyond that, and we've seen it affect performance on many levels.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So, Ami, how do leaders at organizations know if this is an issue inside their own shop? Is there a way to measure this somehow?
Yeah, so there's definitely multiple ways that especially HR teams have used to measure this. A lot has been done through questionnaires and performance reviews, the usual quarterly reviews that big companies do with their employees. And I think a lot of the executive leaders have realized how big of a problem this is, not only because they see it in the results of the questionnaires, but also because of how this impacts their pockets. Every time an employee leaves, there's a lot of expenses associated with that. So recruiting new employees, onboarding the new folks, and then everything regarding time to put up to speed for new employees, and finding good talent is hard. So turnover being a big worry for big corporations. I think this has been shown multiple times. The thing is that there's not a lot of solutions to this currently, and we can touch base on that as well. But essentially, how to check if somebody's dealing with a lot of anxiety. There's clinicians has been doing this for decades, if not centuries. But there is really, really good ways to very specific forms to validate the levels of anxiety that clinicians use. Like, for example, like a GAT-7 test or a Zong anxiety Hamilton-A. Those are standard for any clinician to assess levels of anxiety, and those are specifically very simple questionnaires that can tell you what the intensity of stress and burnout that you're having. And then there's other questions that you can ask employees, like what's your intent of leaving the company, what's your burnout rate, how is your relationship with your manager. As Mark was alluding to, there's a lot of toxic middle management in a lot of the companies that hasn't really been bubbled up to management. And anxiety, we know, because of its nature, it's very contagious. If one person is dealing with a lot of stress, it's very easy to delegate anxiety and stress to your workers. So if somebody at the top is dealing with stress, that can be easily delegated to everyone else in the company. So finding those middle points is crucial. And the only way to do this, Michael, is through monitoring on quarterly and monthly basis to check on your employees, how are they doing, asking them, at Roga and even before when I was at Google, we used to do a lot of retreats with the team and tackle these specific issues to see how people were dealing with the burnout rates and stress. And the whole point of this is to cut it when it's small and not allowing it to grow and infect everyone else in the company, which unfortunately is the common situation amongst most of the big corporations in the US.
Thanks, Ami. So you started Roga to develop a solution that people can use to deal with anxiety. Can you tell us a little bit about the actual product itself?
Yeah, sure. So Roga, which in Hebrew means calm, coincidentally, um, we st- I started the company with my co-founder Alison, who's a PhD in neuroscience, because we were dealing with the same issues that everyone else was dealing in corporate America, and we were not really getting the support we needed. So we created Roga in order to help ourselves, and essentially what we've built is a treatment for stress and burnout that you can use at home, that is very effective to treat the symptoms of stress and burnout, and also content for this specific issue. So we have a platform that not only provides you with guidance, educational content, and psychoeducation, with therapists that can help you throughout different types of or intensity levels of your burnout and stress. But also we've developed a wearable that can effectively reduce the symptoms and bring you into a relaxation state quickly. So it's a really cool state-of-the-art neurotechnology wearable that you put behind. I'm wearing it right now, and it really helps me, especially on meetings and preparing for important meetings and calls like this one. And you can use it while you're at work. You can use it at home or on the go. It's very, very easy and portable. And we made it affordable so that everyone can try it on, and employees can use it in order to help with the symptoms levels. And then we have the content as well to help them, guide them through sessions and therapy, so that we can get to the root cause of what the problem is.
Yeah, that's really cool. How did you become interested in this area?
Well, yeah, it really resonated with me when I spent a lot of time working at Google as a product manager, and I started working in the hardware team. I built, if you're familiar with the Google Home or the Chromecast or the Pixel phones, those are products that I help get to the market and launch. And running multi-billion-dollar verticals and fighting against, competing against Apple and Amazon and Samsung at the same time is something that I don't wish anyone has to go through, because it's extremely hard, and really, really just exhausting on many levels. And even though it was really, really cool for me, I was just dealing with a lot of stress and burnout. This decision making on that level is just really, really complicated, launching in multiple time zones. At some point, I was just diagnosed with the clinical anxiety disorder. I was taking meds. I was on therapy for a long time, and the benefits that you get from most employers are really cool, but they're small band-aid solutions. They give you time off, they give you money incentives, yoga and fitness. Sometimes they even give you like 5 or 10 sessions with the therapist. But essentially, the employer is, listen, the problem is on your side. Here's some sessions with the therapist. Maybe that helps. Here's 10% discount on Headspace, so you can meditate a little bit. But there's a banded solution. So I realized something needed to be done. At first, I wanted to help myself, so went into this neurotech space and found really, really cool technology that is very, very effective, that has been certified on multiple studies and clinical trials, and just needed to be brought to the market in a beautiful form factor, something that everybody can use, in an immersive experience. And yeah, we created, that's how pretty much Roga came to life.
And I don't know if you're on version 1 or version 2, but are you seeing any kind of early results from the product? Any success stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done a few user tests, and we've seen incredible results. So with the wearable and pair with the app and the platform, we've seen reduction in anxiety of our cohorts of up to 58% in less than 2 weeks, and the retention is very, very high. We've had retention north of 73% after months of using the product. So people are engaging with the platform, and the effectiveness is high. We've received testimonials from a lot of the users that are in some way life-changing for them, because they can stop a lot of the triggers that usually kick them into a panic attack or a very very stressful situation, and we can keep those under control, as well as offering a solution that can not only help them but everyone around them. So the response has been really really strong. We've deployed as well in multiple companies that are using our product, and we've seen the biggest thing that we've seen is that there's a reduction in turnaround, so intent of leaving the company, just because of how they feel when they work, and they understand they create purpose. They mix their purpose with the companies, and that's I think the biggest part that we've seen: better collaboration with teammates. When anxiety and stress are down, everything works much better in the company. So we've saved a lot of money for these employers just by reducing the levels of stress and burnout that employees are having, and finding where in the middle management is the toxic epicenter, in targeting and working with the employer, to becoming a partner with them to help them tackle those specific people that need more help.
Yeah, thanks, Sami. So Mark, that sounds like there's some overlap with your practice there in terms of the individual solution for the employee, but also working with the organization to kind of find those drivers of anxiety, right?
Yeah, I mean, it struck me. We, didn't plan this before the call, but our taxonomy is very similar. We embrace this concept of meaningful work, and that's integrating real, true meaning and purpose into the workplace. There's some structural, uh, tactical things that you can do corporately to create that environment or promote that environment more often than what's currently the case. There's also a lot of structural elements around what is valued inside an organization, um, all the way to something as tactical as QA, quality assurance, and coaching, and what organizations now need to emphasize that has to do with meaning. So I think about how we approach this and how we attempt to help organizations make changes to how they think about the employee experience and how to support the employee experience. And if you are to combine that, I think we just invented a new product set here. If we combine that with more individual help at the rep level, and as Ami mentioned, there is a lot of toxicity at that mid level because there's a lot of pressure that's being created in this environment, that you could get, even more impressive results. So yeah, like the approach of, doing things corporately, strategically, and tactically, as well as really honing in on the individual. So yeah, it's interesting how we have similar language even in how we think about these problems and what's required to solve them at the root cause level. Because I do agree with Ami on everything that he's saying, but that notation of, hey, we'll give you a discount here, do some meditation, that today is things that we typically associate with meaning at work, versus meaning from work. And I think that's where we have some overlap with Ami trying to reduce that anxiety, because we're really trying to help them get meaning from the work. And
Yeah,
it's possible to do.
there's a very interesting statistic that I read recently, that in 2021 there were more days off offered to employees and less days taken than in 2020. Meaning that the benefit of, like, giving people more money and giving people more days off when they already working half of the time at home, and they already like getting free meals that the Facebook would give you, or Google, that doesn't mean anything anymore, or getting your fitness or yoga classes. Those are very very small benefits that are not really changing the needle at all, moving the needle at all when it comes to mental health. And we've seen throughout the pandemic and now throughout the economic situation that employers need to become better at supporting, especially the younger employees, throughout their mental health and giving them better solutions.
Yeah,
So
totally agree with that. The meaning from those elements are not moving the needle, and even the wage issue. I mean, we flat out advise clients, you know, get to market. I mean, if you want to be competitive, get to market, but that's not what's going to keep people in those seats. We have to infuse higher levels of meaningfulness, which will reduce anxiety, right? Not thinking of the job as a machine, but really trying to ensure that folks think of the job properly and that we integrate the job into the life, not the life into the job. And so it's going to be, I think there's a lot of potential, like you mentioned before, Ami, is that there's not like a lot of progress being made, even though executives are becoming more aware of it and people are going through the cycle of little tricks or tips or little things that they're attempting to do. But unless we get to the root cause of it, it's going to be really hard to move the performance needle. So I applaud what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Yeah, and we've seen that we're not alone in this wave, because in the last 3 years there's been a rise on digital health benefit companies like Lyra, Ginger acquiring Headspace, Modern Health, Task Human. All of these are unicorns that emerged in the last couple of years because of this unmet need that employers have, that now they're scrambling to figure it out. How do we keep our employees happy, and how do we keep them inside the company? Because if you have somebody that is less than 40 years old in your company, the likelihood is that that person won't finish the year with you in that company. So how do you retain talent? And there's been a massive move towards this type of companies to offer talk therapy, to offer educational tools, and in a way that can support mental health for employees.
So yeah, we very often find that attrition rate is at 50% within the first 90 days. So, one of the things that has to be addressed is you can't look at this just in totality. This has to be, you have to be proactive, intentional, and attack this concept of dealing with anxiety at every part of the employee life cycle, from hiring to onboarding, and even before they get into your building or work from home environment. We've got to make some assurances that we're caring about them as people, right? And want to support them as human beings, and then back that up with some specific actions.
So Ami and Mark, let's wrap this up with just some ideas for the people that are listening to this podcast. What kind of questions can they take back to their organization and say, hey, look, let's stop pretending that these Band-Aid solutions that we have are actually addressing the problem. Number one, how do we get our arms around this in terms of the size of the problem? How widespread is it? And then how do we actually address it? So, why don't we start with you? What are some of those conversation starters that people can take back and questions that they can ask?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's critical that everyone, especially the listeners of this podcast, but also share with friends at work, that you ask and you demand from your employer that they give you this kind of benefits. So it should be a given right that everybody in their job, and we do this internally, gets access to some sort of therapy that is covered by the employer, and also solutions ours is one of those, something like a wearable that can help you decrease levels of stress and burnout, but also access to this kind of content that can serve as education for you. So we welcome you to talk to your employer about and your boss and your manager. This is something that is, I know from experience, is really, really hard, because the first thing that I thought when I was in this situation was, well, I don't want to seem weak. I don't want to show my boss that like I'm dealing with problems, because then I'm gonna get fired. But it's more likely that you're gonna quit than you're gonna get fired because of this issue, already proven by many statistics. So showing vulnerability and talking about this problem is the main start, and demanding that you get something better than just more days off or a performance bonus. Which what you really want to ask is, what's my purpose in this company? What does my job and my work really help to improve other people's lives and other people's quality of life? So once you get to those answers, that's when the anxiety levels and stress will start coming down, and then everybody needs a little bit of help. So making sure that the company you work for has this type of resources and they offer this type of benefits. Otherwise, it's as we've seen it, it's very easy to change jobs and get to another company that do offer you this kind of benefits. There's a lot of really good companies out there that do offer and care about their about their employees. So make sure that you demand that from your boss and your manager. And also for managers to, if they want to save not only money but also improve the performance of their employees, to follow put and contact different solutions for mental health benefits for your employees. You'll see the benefits not only on the morale and the level of engagement of your users, but also at the end of the day in the cash flow, where you're not going to be spending tens of thousands of dollars recruiting and onboarding new people.
Mark, anything to add? What kind of conversation starters should people be taking back to their orgs on this topic?
Yeah, a few things. One, as the leadership team, is there concurrence that there's an issue, right? And just being real and doing a gut check from different leaders within different groups. And as the ultimate leader, whether you're at the C level or you're SVP or EVP of a particular operating unit, that really starts with you. And part of that is, am I as a leader creating a safe place, as Ami mentioned, for people to have this conversation? Because all the stats and just people looking around their own family, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this is a real issue. And so are we as leaders creating an environment where openness and acknowledgement of this is acceptable? And then, as Ami mentioned, he's got an organization and a company with others that offer solutions. We offer solutions in slightly different ways. But I think the first step is to get your arms wrapped around the current baseline. And it takes intentionality, and you have to measure it. So, Ami's mentioned a few of these standardized tests or surveys, research instruments. We also employ that, and it's built around this notion of intent to quit, and it has multiple measures. But the point is that whether you utilize ours or some other resources, take the time to, one, get a baseline, and then don't wait a year, right? Find other listening posts either to re-administer the test, because that speaks loads to your employees that you do care. But find a way to create the cadence, whether it be formal through some of these assessment tools or informal listening tools where the managers are proactively asking about it and encouraging open dialogue so that folks can, raise their hands and we as leaders can take action. Um, Ultimately, yes, for the good of these employees who represent our brands, for sure. And as a side benefit, significant amount of dollar savings. I mean, we've seen folks who've been intentional about this getting 25 and 50% reduction in that attrition because they've learned to address the root. And so, those would be some of the things. Are we taking this seriously? Are we creating safe places and encouraging our leaders to engage our employees on those conversations? And do we have a mechanism to measure this? And if the answer is no to any of those, we'd encourage you to rethink that and make it a part of your strategy.
Mark and Ami, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Mark.
Yep. Thank you, Ami.
And we want to thank our listeners as well, and we'll see you next time.